the Twitch session for the DocuSign Good Code Hackathon. And my name is Inbar Gazit, and I am working in DocuSign for a while now, working on various things that have to do with the APIs. I used to work on our Microsoft integrations, and now I'm working on developer content, things like the DocuSign blog and the newsletter. And another thing we're doing here is sample apps, which is all kinds of applications that showcase how you can use our APIs. And this is what we're going to focus in this talk. This talk will be focused on a specific sample app that actually is not yet officially out yet. It's almost ready, and we will launch it in the next couple of weeks. So you guys getting a very early sneak peek preview as part of this hackathon talk. It's called MyHR. You can see it right now on my screen here. And it showcases a bunch of APIs and endpoints and technologies from DocuSign. And so in this session, I'm just going to show you both how to use it and what it does, but more importantly, how we did it. What are the technologies and code behind that is used for this app. What I want to make sure also that this is kind of like an interactive session. So if you guys have any questions, you want me to cover something, slow down, speed up, you can chat in the portal here in Twitch. I'm just over there, which is why you see a lot of screens here, but I don't see anything in the chat. Just say hello and see if everyone is getting my hello. So that's how you can communicate with me. I'll check this from time to time to see if there are any questions or requests for anything. So I'm assuming you guys are all good right now. So again, my name is Inbar, and this is the Twitch session for the Good Code Hackathon, focused on various workflows that you can accomplish using some of our APIs. This is what we call a sample app. Just a few words of what is a sample app. A sample app is our way of showcasing what can be done. It's not a real app. It looks kind of polished, has all the nice images and everything, but it's really meant to showcase what you can do. It's not a real thing. This one is focused on HR professionals, and it's really a portal that you might have in your company where you can complete various HR activities. Some of those activities are for the employee themselves, and some are focused on managers that have to, it could be HR managers or just any manager. So the first thing you need to do here when you use this is actually log in. And for your technical information, we use different authentication mechanisms here. I'll use with a test account here, but the other option is to log in with your own account, which will be a developer account. We sometimes call this our demo environment. And if you have one, you can use this button here. I'm going to use this one. This one is using JWT Authentication. I can talk more about JWT Authentication, sorry, but I think you had a separate session about that, so I'm not going to focus so much about that. So I'll click that, and then we'll be logged in. Lots of information here, so I kind of go explain what we're going to focus on. The thing here on the left is information that's actually coming from your DocuSign account. It looks like it's HR information, so we're kind of doing a little bit of a killing two birds with one stone here. We both bring your employee information, if you will, as well as using API calls from e-signature API of DocuSign to get your information from DocuSign, and we'll show you how to do that. So all this information here, hire date is really when the account was created. So we kind of use that this way. An address exists in your DocuSign account, name, even your profile picture here. And this little button will allow you to edit this, can change the address here, save it. And I'll show you in a bit how all of this is done behind the scenes, like the code. There's a get call here to get your account information. When I click this and I click save, we make a put call to update your account information. This account ID is we use it like your employee ID. So it's basically a way to showcase how you can update information from DocuSign and vice versa. Just check if there are any questions, nothing here. So someone says, hey, great. So now let's talk a little bit more of the scenarios that are more, and you get some feedback here, which is nice, user update information. And I actually technically should say this is a user information, not an account information. DocuSign account could have multiple users. Each of them can have a name. So just a word of clarification here. Let's start talking about some of the scenarios here that are both HR scenarios as well as showcasing some of the e-signature as well as click API functionality. So the first one here is doing direct deposit. Maybe you guys have done that somewhere. When we click update here, we're going to make a bunch of API calls to DocuSign, which I'll show you in a bit, and preparing your envelope here to make a request for direct deposit information. And now you see suddenly the DocuSign UI, which maybe some of you are familiar with already, and you're asked to sign something. And by signing, it's not just signing, it's also providing information. So we are going to cover some of the functionality that we have here, and also later show you how it's done in the API using the code. So first one you'll notice here is we're asking for routing numbers, and there is primary and secondary. And you'll notice that the primary ones are in red, and everything here is kind of like gray. And the reason for this is those are mandatory, see, required fields, where those are optional. See, when I go over there, it says optional. So that's one interesting feature that you can use when you create envelope and you push those fields, also known as tags or tabs. There are lots of names for those things. These are text or number files, tags, sorry. And those are required as those are optional. I'm just going to put some mock information here. Obviously, if this was a real thing, you will want to put your account information. The other thing we're doing here is we are also, if I provide another thing here, which is a percentage allocation, and I fill all this thing, and there is some validation here that will basically, if I sign this and I try to submit, it should be telling me that there is some error. And the error here is obviously a percentage should be a number between 0 and 100. So I could try to do 54, then finish, and then it tells me there is an invalid error here. And the problem here is that the total should come to 100. So this should be 46. And now the message goes away. And you notice there was a message here. If I put it says total percentage must be equal to 100. And I'll show you how this was all done. So basically, this is more than signing. There's all kinds of workflow and calculations and almost like some kind of programming here, if you think about it, because the user of this thing sees some interaction as they fill this thing, and they cannot finish if I try to, well, might be wrong about that. Maybe you should try this again. This was interesting. Unexpected. You should not have been able to finish this. There was an error there in the validation. I might need to check why this allowed me to proceed. But the other thing that once I'm done and I come back here, you see all the information that you entered in this app. Notice this app is a sample app. It's a complete different thing. It's a web app. Nothing to do with DocuSign per se. I mean, we are DocuSign, we built it, but it's a completely separate. It's actually hosted on AWS. It's not the DocuSign platform. So the information is being gathered here using an API call. The reason we know all these things here, all the information you entered over there, which over there was DocuSign, over here is this sample app. So if you build your app, you can extract information from the DocuSign envelope into your app and vice versa, which we haven't showed you yet here, but information can also be flown into DocuSign. So there is this bidirectional ability to get information into tabs in the envelope. Let's see if there are any questions so far. No questions here, so I'm assuming everyone is with me and happy so far. What I would like to do next, because we spent about 10 minutes here in the app and show you a little bit of it, but maybe we can jump into how this was built. So this app, and those of you who are familiar with Visual Studio will recognize this as being Visual Studio. And this is the code for the app. And by the way, let me just go back quickly here. Those of you who have good eyes may have noticed there is a link here to GitHub source. And you can click that and it will take you to GitHub. The only thing is right now this repo is private because like I mentioned in the beginning, this sample app is new and we haven't yet officially shipped it. So what I'm gonna do for you guys in the hackathon is if anyone is interested to see this code, please ping me on Slack directly. You can find my name in the Slack channel. And I can share you the code right now privately. It will be public available for everyone, not just the hackathon participant, but everyone, but not quite ready yet. So if you need it for some reason, you want to see how it was done, you want to play with it, let me know and I can send it to you. It's just not available publicly yet right now. However, in this talk, I'm going to show it to you. So this is Visual Studio. So this particular app is built using C#, ASP.NET Core, and it's actually, interesting enough, deployed on a Linux box, which is a nice thing with ASP.NET Core. It even utilizes Node for the front end. So the back end is C#, the front end is Node with some script built in TypeScript, and it's built on Linux with AWS. It's kind of a hodgepodge of different technologies, but the back end, the API calls are all using C#. This is why that's the kind of the primary language that I'm going to show you today. And also this is why we're using Visual Studio here. The first thing I want to show you is how we actually get the SDK. So this is the project file, which I should have clicked. I wanted to right click it. And if I right click it, you can go to manage NuGet packages. NuGet is how Microsoft with Visual Studio and C# and .NET has a package manager that allows anyone to publish packages. This is right here, the DocuSign eSign DLL, and it's an SDK for all the e-signature API functionality. The latest version 4.52 is the one that is being used. It's actually hot the press late, came in last week. And you can see all the information here. There are some dependent packages. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but the point is if you are deciding to use C# for your application, all you have to do to start using the API is to include this package in your code, and then you get everything in there, and we'll show you what you do at that point. But it is very easy to use the SDK. So I highly recommend, you don't have to use C#. We have SDKs in 6 different languages, and I highly recommend you use the SDK for your project. Even if you don't use C#, you can use one of the other ones, as it makes it very easy to make the API calls. It builds all the objects, serialized, deserialized. You don't have to spend a lot of energy on those things. There's also a method in the SDK for the JWT authentication, or maybe I'll show you that in a bit. Again, I'm going to stop every 2 seconds to see if there are questions. No questions. So I'm going to proceed. I'm hoping I'm not going too fast. If you guys want me to focus on anything different or anything that I'm not focusing on, I'm kind of glossing over, because I want to make sure I'm covering a lot of different things. So back to the code. This is the code that is used to build this direct deposit envelope. And actually the way we do it here is we build a template. DocuSign templates are a very powerful way to do the same thing again and again and again. So in this case, we don't want every time that we need to use the direct deposit envelope to create the envelope from scratch. We use a template, and then we create the envelope from the template. That is one way to do it. There are many ways to use DocuSign e-signature, but templates are very useful. They can also be shared with other users, and they can be modified at any time. So there are all kinds of things you can do. Here is the code that kind of builds this template. The envelope template is one of those objects that come from the SDK that I showed you, the NuGet package. And it has a name, as everything. This email subject is the subject that will be used when an email is sent. And that's a good opportunity to mention that there are two ways to sign. One is what we did earlier, which is called embedded signing, where the signing is embedded inside your application. You click a button in some app. It could be the DocuSign app, but it could be your app. And then you sign, and you never have to actually get an email. The other one is called remote signing. And I'll show you that later because one of the other scenarios uses that. That's where we send an email to someone, and they get a link in the email, click the link, and start the signing session from there. That's where these email subjects come into. You need it regardless to create the envelope or the template. It's kind of a mandatory field. Then we add documents. In this case, we have a single document, which is this direct deposit update that you saw earlier. It's a relatively simple document with all those fields. And it's a Word document in this case, so the extension is docx. DocuSign, it's a good place to say that we support many different document formats. Obviously, the most popular ones are PDF and Word docs, but they could be all kinds of image files. There could be Excel, PowerPoint. There could be HTML, of course, text files. There's more than 50 different document types that are supported by DocuSign. And you can explore if it helps you to use something other than the common ones, how to use those. You just have to know the extensions. Document ID is an identifier for your document inside this envelope, so it doesn't have to be globally unique. So using 1, 2, 3 is absolutely fine. So that's the document part. And this is a good, even though we're building a template here, it's kind of the same for an envelope, because a template really is just a repeating envelope. So you build it the same way you build an envelope. So you need a name, you need a subject, you need documents, you need recipients. Those things are the same for other templates or envelopes. So here, again, we have a single signer, which is the person, the user that wants to get direct deposit. This is probably not a real-world example. As in a real-world example, if this was a real HR system, then there will be someone after that, some kind of a payroll person, someone in HR, even maybe your manager. I don't know, that will get maybe a CC version of this, or maybe they even need to sign to say that they did their part. An envelope could have multiple signers, different kinds of signers. A signer is a type of a recipient. So you see here there is a recipient, and it leaves a list of signers. And so we add it to the signer objects. But if I put a comma here, you should be able to see all the other options for different. This is a very nice feature of Visual Studio called IntelliSense that kind of show me what I can use. Carbon copies are those CCs. But we have many other kinds of in-person signers is an interesting one. That is a useful type of recipient where the actual signer is different than the person getting the email. It's a common scenario where the actual signer, you might not know the email, or maybe you go to an office of a realtor or of a travel agent or whatever, and they want you to sign, but they are the one that get the email from DocuSign. And I'm not going to cover all those different types of recipients, but we have all kinds of things you can do. So the other thing you do here, so this is the kind of the basic things that you need for an envelope is the subject, documents, and recipients. Once you have those, you can actually send the envelope. And that's kind of the minimum required. However, sorry, I'm going to take a sip of water here. If you just add those and you don't add any tags or tabs or fields, however you want to call them, then your signer will still be able to sign, but it will be what we call free-form sign, where they can drag and drop signing elements from the left, but they don't really know where you intended for them to sign. If you remember, and maybe we should do this again just to kind of refresh your memory, when this is doing the APIs calls that I didn't quite show you, but I show you all the data for them. Notice after I click continue here, you can click start and you're automatically taken to the first tab here. And it tells you need to fill it in. All of this is available because we added it, which I'll show you in a second. But if you didn't, you wouldn't get this, and the user will just have kind of to drag drop things in here. Maybe you've seen that, and that is the reason. How was it done here? We have a method here called create tabs, and that's where we create those tabs objects. And we have lots of types of tabs, just like we have lots of types of recipients. And by the way, a tab is associated with the recipient. So if you have multiple recipients, you will have to say this tab is for this recipient, et cetera, et cetera. The most common tabs is a sign here tab, which is really the one that you see here in this one, sign here. And all you have to do is click it to sign. But if I didn't have my, and you see there is this Xenia L, sorry, this is done because Xenia already signed this in the past, but if it was the very first time Xenia signed, it will actually ask Xenia to provide her signature. I just draw it or pick from a list of signatures. This is another, I'm not sure if there is a way that I can do this here. Not sure, but there is a way to also change how you sign. I might not be able to do it right now in this session. In any event, this is the tab, the sign here tab. The way it's specified here is by position. So you give the kind of longitude and longitude, the X, Y position. It's not optional, it's mandatory. So you say optional false in this case. And we say it's a signature, it's for document 1, page 1. If you have multiple pages, you might need to say which page it is. Recipient ID 1, and name sign here. So this is kind of the information required for this particular, and this is the only sign here tab. That's the only place, notice with that I had to sign. There is a date tab right here, and this is this date that I created right here. Again, the location on the place, and all kinds of other information. The important one is the document and page number. And we only had one date here. Number tabs, and we had a bunch of those. And you can see that, for example, this one is the primary routing number, this one up here. And you'll see that here it says, it actually says required equals true. So it's required. But the secondary, if we scroll down here, it says required equals false. And this is how you change from required fields to not required fields. Notice that it's optional versus required. Trying to kind of speed up this. We have number tabs, lots of them. And then we have this note tab. This is this thing here. So a note tab is where you want to provide a note for your user, but the reason you don't just put it in the document is you might want some logic associated with this note. So the logic is in this conditional. So there might be a condition that this note shows, and we don't show it if the condition doesn't apply. And we can also pick the color, the location like before, and we specify the message here. So this message can also be custom tailored to what you need. Then we have a formula. The formula is right here. If you remember, I have percentage here. So I put 50 here, I put 50 here, and it's automatically calculated here. And notice this also disappeared here. If I put 30, it shows up again. All of this is through the magic of a formula. Excuse me. So the formula has this calculation here. You see how it has that the first percentage plus the other percentage equals 100. And basically it says the formula is required, and it has this conceal value in document that basically will conceal that when it does apply, when it's 100. So that's kind of like the two elements. So there is a two formula of tabs here, actually, one for the calculation and one for showing it. So this is the one for showing it, which has the locations and all the information about how you show it. And this is more for the actual logic. Let me see at this point, before we move on, I see there's some discussion here. I noticed I can sometimes change the signature and sometimes I can't. Does anybody know how or what? Yes, good point. And I didn't cover that. You're referring to this. I can change it here. So first of all, I believe you should always be able to change it. And notice I can also clear, and then I can sign again. The way you do it is you click it again before you're done. If you click change, I can do edit here and change style, and there are all kinds of other styles, and I can even draw it, and I can adopt this and replace, and now my beautiful signature is showing here. Now you're saying sometimes you don't have this. So I'm not exactly sure in which conditions you don't have this. This is a good question, and maybe I can research it later and answer in Slack. But I can tell you that if you see a signature that someone else did, then you definitely can't change their signature. So that might be one case you are asking about. Or maybe you are not logged into the session correctly. So this session, this is a embedded signing session for this particular signer, and maybe I should show this in the code because I didn't actually get to all of that. This was built in the tabs. And just a second. This is the template helder, but there is also, so I created this template and I need to actually use it. So let me look for that code. Just a second. Okay. This the code that actually creates the envelopes. And this code is kind of specific to this sample app. So it checks a bunch of things about if it's I9 and JWT, all kinds of things. But the important thing is that we have this method to create a recipient view. And so maybe I can go into the implementation of that. I can't because it is. So here's all the information I need to provide to create a recipient view. A recipient view is what supports this view that you see here. So it's basically an embedded sign-in experience inside your integration. And you have to specify, of course, the account ID, the envelope ID, the email and name of the person who is signing. And those have to match exactly to what's on the envelope as defined earlier. And if they match exactly, I believe you'll be able to modify your signature. So that might be the reason why it wasn't working in some case for you. But I believe in any other case, you should be able to change it. The other thing, since we're talking about this, is your redirect URL, which basically in this case allows me to redirect back, which can happen even if I decline to sign. And this is another feature of DocuSign. You can decline to sign and say why you decline to sign, and now I'm redirected back here. And I'm not getting this little pop-up because I didn't complete my signature. So I hope this kind of answer the question. Lauren saying thanks. Okay, sounds good. There's one more thing I think I didn't cover about creating this envelope, which I was going to. So there is the part where, yeah, and I think it's right here. No, this is the recipient view request. the thing is, we're using an envelope in a template. So when we created the template, when we created the signer, if you notice here, we used something called role name. And we didn't actually specify at this point the email and name. This is specified when you create the envelope from the template. So in that part of the code, you'll have to make sure that the role name is also matching. You have to give the role name, the email and name, and then DocuSign, what it does, it takes everything from the template, copies it over to the envelope that is created from the template, and then replaces the role based on the name with the email and address and the name you gave. This is what we call placeholders roles. You can actually create a role in a template that's hard-coded. It's always like the VP of finance always get this particular envelope for this template, no matter what, but someone else signs it or something. But if it's a placeholder role, then you have to use the name to match when you create the envelope from the site. Let me get back here because we are halfway through this session and I want to cover a few other things. Let's do something completely different just so we can kind of make sure we cover everything. There is a scenario here for doing a time card. Some employees need to do a time card in their HR portal. So you want to enter time and you want to say, I worked 8 hours every week. That part is not that interesting for you. But then when you submit the report, we are going to use a different feature of DocuSign and a different API called DocuSign Click. DocuSign Click allows you to do something like this, where you say, I agree that, or I affirm that I worked 40 hours this week. You have to check here and you have to click confirm. And that is a different experience, as you can see from the experience we had earlier. You don't really sign here. I'm sure you've seen on the web many things like that. Typically, it's called a click wrap, and it's an interaction where you just agree to something, affirm, confirm. I mean, there are many words you can use here, and you can actually customize. I'll show you the word here. And you can customize this whole thing. And the nice thing is that it's a much lower barrier to entry, kind of less scary. You don't have to adopt a signature. You don't have to do all those other things that make DocuSign maybe a higher level. And you can just say confirm. There's still some stuff here in the back that DocuSign has to do because unlike maybe some other solutions out there, we log everything from a security perspective, from an auditing, all of it. It's just as secure and everything as e-signature. However, it's a lightweight version of it to just kind of like agree to something. There is and it's basically completed now. There is an option to download the copy, not very relevant. In this case, it might be relevant if this is something like an NDA maybe. An NDA is one of those examples where you can either use DocuSign or use Click. I mean, either use eSign or use Click. Both of them would be nice for an NDA. And if it's an NDA, you might want to download the copy. In this case, it's not really relevant. But this is how Click was used. Again, we come back here and, well, this is actually not the right screen here. And let's see how this, any question about Click, by the way, feel free to ask me here. Let's see how Click was created here. I thought I had it open, maybe not. Let's see. So we need the account ID, the user ID. These are kind of similar to e-signature. And there is a lot of similarities between the Click API and the e-signature API. We don't have yet an SDK, by the way, for the Click API. So if you do want to use it, you will have to kind of make the API calls yourself. What we have here is kind of the information that in this case, we need the hours. And then we are going to create a click wrap. So let's see how we do this. And this is what I was talking to you about. Here is and the reason you see the endpoint here, it's V1 of the click wrap or the Click API, is because we are making the call directly. All of this kind of like, what is the endpoint? And is it a post? All those questions when you use the SDK in eSign, you don't need to think about it. You don't need to make HTTP requests. It's all done for you by the SDK, which is kind of nice. But it's not that hard if you do want to use things directly, and you have to in the case of Click API. Here are all the things you can customize, which is nice. We're basically creating a click wrap here. You can decide what is the language here. In this case, I confirm. Do you want a decline button? In this case, true. And maybe I should go back here and kind of show you all those things, go back and forth, so you can kind of see display name, tag tracking confirmation, model. So you can decide if you want it to be a model, which is this. You see it's a model here, and I cannot go back. It blocks the, and it's not completely redirecting. But you can also say that you don't want it as a model and you want it as a complete redirect and move to the other side. And it will be more like, the model is what's nice, because that's kind of why Click is different than e-signature, where you have to redirect. And you see the decline button here. This is this true here. It has accept, must read, all those things. You can basically completely, and the size is small. This is a small model. We can make it bigger because it's a very simple document. All we write here is this. And the document part is here. And again, we use a Word document, but you can use all those other formats. It's the same thing as e-signature. And then we just make an HTTP request, in this case, asynchronous, to actually make the API call. And then we need to make another API call to activate it. I don't want to spend too much time on Click API because I'm not sure. Actually, I'm going to ask you, is anyone interested to kind of get deeper on the Click API, or should I show more stuff on the eSign API? Any votes? Lauren? Anyone else? I don't know who else is on the call. If not, I'll just go back to the Click API and show you more stuff here. What might be interesting? So let's scroll. Why is it not letting me scroll down? Let me refresh this. Yeah, scroll down. We have some managers action here. Manager in the case of HR, but they might be interested to show a few other things. For example, this candidate offer letter. Imagine that I'm a manager and I want to send some candidate an offer to join work in DocuSign or any other company. So I click send. I need to provide the person new hire, and all I need is name and email. And I'm using here this Mailinator thing here because it's and you guys might want to be knowing about it, because Mailinator is a useful tool for testing, where you want some random email and you don't necessarily want to use your email. So I'll click continue here. And the manager is the one using this. So that manager, she will first come here and click continue. And this is a demo, you know, I'm offering you this wage benefit, blah, 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 like I'm going to send you a offer letter. And notice here there are two signatures. So this is the first time we have two recipients in and they are both signing. But the important thing here is that we use what is called routing order. Imagine this was a real case. We wouldn't want the employee to get this before the manager signed and see that the manager, you know, Ksenia didn't sign it. It's what's going on, but she really want me to work there or not. So that's why we use routing order. And Ksenia has to sign first, and the employee will never get the email until Ksenia signs it. So routing order is just a number. And if you use one for Ksenia, you can use two for the employee, and that employee will only get it once Ksenia signed. And they will also see her signature. We'll show you, oh, this is the weird signature, I just did. So Ksenia signs it, click finish. We will be redirected back because, and it says the offer letter was sent successfully because Ksenia signed it, like I said. And now what we can do is we can go to this useful thing called Mailinator, say new hire, and you'll see a couple of things here. I've been testing this, I guess, 3 hours ago. But this is the one that just came moments ago. And you'll see this is what an email, and maybe you've seen this before, looks from DocuSign. This is this message. You can customize the title. Remember, we talked about this earlier. And you see some of the information here. This is a offer letter. And in this case, it was a PDF, and this name shows here. It doesn't actually have to show the name with the PDF here. It's just the default, and that's how this app was built. But anyway, our candidate is clicking this, and this is remote signing. And they never signed before, so we'll get this experience, continue. But notice here that they see Xenia's signature here. So that's the important thing. If it wasn't done as a 1-2 routing order, they may not, because it depends on who signed first. And so you want to ensure that you use the routing order. This new employee never used DocuSign. So now, before they can even sign, they are asked to. So if that was the question early, why do you get that sometimes versus immediately have a signature? The answer is, did you ever use it before with DocuSign? We kind of store it for you for the next time. But I think the question was, when can I change it? So this is slightly different. But if I do that, I believe I can still, I thought I could. Maybe I can't in this case, because I don't yet have an account with DocuSign. That would be my explanation why I cannot change it. So maybe that's the answer to the question earlier, that you have to have an account with DocuSign. So I was able to adopt it, but now it doesn't let me do anything here. So I can just finish it, which will finish this envelope. And then they ask me if I want to create an account and all of that. Anyway, back here, let's see if there are any questions. There are. Thanks. CKPR was very interesting. That's what I meant. It's great. Okay. Hoping we have other people except for Lauren on this. But if not, Lauren, you get a private session with me, which is perfectly fine with me. And let's move on. I wanted to show some more advanced stuff that we have to have here. I-9, for those of you who are in the US, probably know what an I-9 is. An I-9 is a document that a new employee, after they join, need to sign for them to verify their identity. And verifying your identity is something you may or may not know you can also do with DocuSign. And so similarly to this one, this is something the manager will do, and they will provide, let's use the same new hire again, after they already accepted and started, we'll provide their information here. In this case, the manager doesn't need to sign. I believe they don't, unless I'm confused. But anyway, we click continue here, and you'll see here that it was sent successfully to the candidate. And if we go back here to Mailinator, we have a new I-9 form here. And if I click review on this one, you'll see slightly different experience here, and you'll also, the ones that notice the URL is different here. This is DocuSign Identity, or Identify, it was used to be called, but this is additional technology that is tied to our e-signature technology that allows DocuSign to identify people and verify their identity. And it's very useful. It's also called IDV for short. And you can send envelopes with recipients that are required to go through this process before they can sign. It's useful for something like I-9, but I can imagine a dozen other cases where you basically want to know this is the person that you think it is. I'm not going to go through the whole process, but after you click start here, you have to say, you know, I'm in the United States, and of course you can select other countries, and then which kind of document you have. And the thing about that is that it requires you to have a phone. I'm on a laptop right now, so I'll not be able to show the whole process. But if you click get started here, you put your phone number, they text you the app, or I don't even think you need an app, but after that you get a link on your phone, and you can then take a picture of your passport or driver license, etc. And the wizard, the magic happens behind the scene where DocuSign actually checks the document, make sure it's authentic. So you can't just upload a picture that someone else sent you, for example. And not only that, make sure that it is you, so that the name matches the name on your DocuSign and everything else looks legit. And Obviously, if you stole someone's passport, then maybe you can still get away with it. But other than that, this is a good way to verify your identity. So that is I-9. Maybe I can quickly show. I'm not sure if we have more time. Sorry. I think we have more time. I think this is an hour. If not, someone stop me. So let me go back to the code and show you how we did IDV. Maybe I can search for IDV. So how do you enable the IDV? So first of all, if any one of you will want to use IDV for the hackathon, you can do that, but you'll have to ask us to help you, because IDV has some cost associated with it. So it's not like a free feature. I mean, you wouldn't have to pay for it. We'll take care of it, but it's not available for anyone for free all the time. So you just have to tell us if you want to test that. But what we need to do is to take the template that we talked about before, the account before, the role. So it's for a specific recipient. So you can have multiple recipients. Not all of them have to go for IDV. And then you need to get the identity verification. So let's go to implementation here. Sorry, that cannot be done. This is actually a method on the SDK. Sorry, that's why it tells me this. So on the accounts API, you have to do get identity verification. That's actually this code. You don't have to have that. This code was put in here to check if you actually have this enabled. We can, like I said, enable it for you. If not, you'll get this exception. And then all you have to do is add this workflow ID into your envelope. So workflow ID is some kind of string that identify the workflow to do IDV on your account, and you have to do it by adding this recipient identity verification object on your either template or envelope. If you put it on the template, that every time you create an envelope from that template, IDV will be enabled all the time. So that's kind of the way it works. So that's how you do that with the DocuSign API. I think one thing I haven't showed before, let's see if there is a question. Do you know what kind of verification happens on a phone? Okay, so what I should have said, and we don't have it in this sample app, but IDV is kind of like the top-notch identity verification. There are other, what we call recipient authentication. And what I can maybe show you is another resource for that. If you go to our dev center, and because there are other ways to do recipient authentication, you go to eSign, and you go to code examples, which is, by the way, where you can find code examples for all kinds of things related to e-signature. And they are grouped into groups here on the left. And you see here where it says multi-factor recipient authentications. And IDV is the very first one, what I just showed you here. But all of these others are kind of like lower bar. For example, the very popular one is an SMS one. And that might be good enough for your needs. And it's also free and enabled by default for everything. Very simple one. All it means is you provide a phone number, the person gets a text with a phone number, with a number. They have to put this number before they can sign. This is obviously a lower bar because they don't have to scan their passport. So it's just another way, you know, if your email is hacked, hopefully they didn't steal your phone. So this gives you a little bit of a higher level of security. Those others are similarly all free. Phone authentication is just similar to, you know, maybe in some other countries, SMS is not available or is expensive. You can do a phone call. Access code. Access code is a little tricky, is you need to provide the access code yourself to the site. So how do you do that? If you do it via email or SMS, then you kind of either defeat the purpose or go back to one of those. And KBA is another interesting one. It's basically using some database by LexisNexis that if you know enough about this person, usually you need their social security number. That's why this may not be applicable, but they can ask them questions like, where did you live in 1996, or which kind of car you drove, or stuff like that, and they can use that to identify them. Might be an alternative to IDV in some cases. I've seen this used by like insurance companies, etc. So it's an option as well. All of those are available for you here if you want to use. IDV is the only one that was used by this sample app that I'm demoing today, but there are all ways to have additional authentication. Hope that kind of helps with the question, Lauren, that you had. And nothing is off topic, by the way. So if you have any question about the API, technical questions, Lawrence, if you are interacting here with me, what kind of programming language would you be using? Would you use C#, something else? Because I can also show you some other things. I don't mind showing whatever you are interested in. So I'll check this in C#, perfect. So any question about the C# SDK or how to use it? Or have you already used it? Did you run into any issues? Do you want me to show anything about authentication? The JWT method, I haven't showed that. Is that interesting? Let me see if I can show that. Did I lose my solution explorer here? Here it is, JWT. Blah, blah, blah. Where is it? It should be in here. Yeah, so this is where we do the JWT magic in this piece of code right here. And I can share this code with you. And there is a method in every one of our SDKs, including C#, called request JWT user token. You can use that method only with JWT, obviously. And you need the following things. You need an integration key, which is what you get by signing up first for a developer account and then going to your admin and APIs and keys page. You need a user ID, which is the specific user you are interacting as. It's a grid. You can get that at the same page in DocuSign. Off server just means that you're using our demo, or I'm pretty sure for this hackathon, you're only using that. So it's account-d at DocuSign.com versus account at DocuSign.com. Another thing you need is you need to create a key pair, and you need the private key, and you need those bytes here. Best way to do it is put them in a file, and especially in the case of C#, and read those bytes here. This is basically how long you want it good for, and you have to specify, I believe it's in, expires in hours, how many hours you want it to expire. And then scopes. Scopes is important because it depends which kind of APIs you are using. So what we are using here is click, e-signature, and impersonation. Impersonation is always needed for JWT because the whole concept of JWT is you are making the call to get the token without the user being present. The user does need to accept or to consent once, but after that, that's it. I'm going to guess that for many of the things you're going to do in the hackathon, JWT will be very useful. So if you have any issues with that, I will be happy to answer questions on Slack, and just ping me there. There is some confusion sometimes about how to obtain consent and those scopes. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. So I think we have 5 minutes left. Let's see what's the question. I'm using it. I'm very pleased. As example, going to live on Thursday. Oh, you're going live, you mean go live like to production? Or you mean go live in the context of the hackathon? Or you're not related to the hackathon, which is okay too. But just wondering. Yeah, I'm using account impersonation on Better View. Okay, cool. So you might not be in the hackathon Slack, Lauren. I'm not sure if you are related to the hackathon or not, but you can find me in other places too. You can just find my name by searching online. No, you're not. Okay, that's what I figured. I have a blog series, so you can find me there. Also Stack Overflow. And also, I don't mind putting my email address because it's not a secret. So if you have any questions, you can also email me. Asking questions on Stack Overflow is also a good idea, because if it's not just your private issue, other people can learn from it. So that's another way. I kind of am almost done here. So anything else, Lauren, or I don't know if there's anyone else. Looks like there are 8 people. Excuse me. We have Skypes. Okay. Cool. Anyone else on the call? Can I see the name of people? 8 people. So, you guys mostly have code names, so I don't know who you are, but I'm about to be done. So just hoping if anyone wants to ask any questions, interact in any way, want to see anything that I haven't shown. Like I said, this app will be live hopefully by the end of this month. But if anyone is interested in seeing the code earlier, it will be available in GitHub, and you can use it in any way you want. Kiwa, not sure what Kiwa is. Is that a company name? Isn't this cool? You can see me indefinitely number of times here. Really cool. Company in Holland. Oh, wow. So it must be almost 9 p.m. in Holland. So good night. Oh, that's a good time to mention that if you are interested in the hackathon, you should go to DevPost, DocuSign 2020 at devpost.com. The link is posted here. And we have a Slack channel. And Lauren, I know you said you're not in the hackathon, but maybe you want to join because it's a hackathon that can help the environment. We are partnering with the Forest Society and basically trying to use their data and see how you can use DocuSign APIs to do good for the forest, which we all like. So maybe you should consider, or tell your friends or your colleagues can still join. Oh, you are competing in the hackathon. Great. So when you said you're going live, you didn't mean you're doing both. I wasn't clear where you're going live, or you mean your hackathon project will be ready, or you mean, or maybe you're taking your hackathon project live. All of those are great with me. Anything else from anyone? I just wanted to leave some questions. I felt like there was a lot of stuff. So thank you, everyone. I think that is, oh, the Kiwa project. Okay, cool. See you guys later. Bye for now.